It's one of the most recognized nutritional guides in history. For decades, it shaped what we ate, how we shopped, and what our children were taught about nutrition. But what if this iconic symbol was built on a foundation of flawed science, industry influence, and misguided policy? In the years following the introduction of the food pyramid in 1992, American obesity rates skyrocketed by over 50%. Diabetes diagnoses more than doubled, and heart disease remained the #1 killer despite low-fat diets becoming the norm. Was this just a coincidence, or could our trusted dietary guidelines actually be making us sick? Today on Better Body Doctors, we're flipping the food pyramid on its head to reveal what science really says about healthy eating, who influenced these guidelines, and why the foundation of the pyramid might be fundamentally flawed. The origins of the food pyramid. To understand where things went wrong, we need to go back to the beginning. The story of the food pyramid starts in the 1970s, when concerns about heart disease were rising and politicians were demanding action. In 1977, just 3 years after I was born, a Senate committee led by George McGovern published the first dietary goals for Americans, recommending that Americans reduce their fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol consumption. But here's the crucial question. Was this recommendation based on solid scientific evidence? The evidence was far from conclusive. The famous 7-country study by Ancel Keys that linked saturated fat to heart disease had serious methodological flaws. Keys actually had data from 22 countries, but only included the 7 that supported his hypothesis. When you look at all the data, the correlation largely disappears. Despite shaky science, these recommendations became the foundation for all future dietary guidelines. But it wasn't until 1992 that the USDA introduced the iconic pyramid we all recognize. The pyramid placed 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta at the foundation, suggesting these foods should make up the majority of our diet. Fruits and vegetables came second, then dairy and protein foods, with fats and oils at the tiny tip to be used sparingly. Industry, influence, and conflicts of interest. Before we look at the scientific problems with these recommendations, we need to ask a crucial question. Who had input into these guidelines? The USDA, the agency that created the food pyramid, has a dual mission that creates an inherent conflict of interest. It's tasked with promoting American agricultural products while also providing nutrition advice to citizens. Grains make up a significant portion of American agriculture. Is it just coincidence that grains form the foundation of the pyramid? The original draft of the pyramid actually placed fruits and vegetables at the base, but after intense lobbying from the grain industry, the design was changed to feature grains at the foundation instead. Similar influence came from other food industries. The dairy industry ensured their products had a prominent place. The sugar industry had successfully shifted blame to fat years earlier, which helped keep scrutiny away from added sugars in processed foods. Internal industry documents that have come to light in recent years show how industry funding shaped research priorities and public messaging around nutrition, often at the expense of scientific integrity. Before we dive into the scientific flaws of the food pyramid and the health consequences that followed, I want to invite you to join our Better Body Doctors community. Hit that subscribe button and bell icon right now so you don't miss any of our investigations into the foods that affect your health every day. We're just getting started with exposing the truth about nutrition guidelines that may be harming rather than helping you. The scientific flaws in the pyramid. Now let's examine the scientific problems with the food pyramid's recommendations. First, the pyramid treats all carbohydrates as essentially equal. The base doesn't distinguish between processed grains, like white bread, and whole grains. Yet research has consistently shown these foods affect our bodies very differently. Second, the pyramid demonized all fats equally, placing them at the tip to be used sparingly. Yet we now know that different fats have dramatically different effects on health. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish, monounsaturated fats in olive oil and avocados, and even certain saturated fats like those in unprocessed coconut products have beneficial effects that were completely ignored by the pyramid's simplistic view. The pyramid's low-fat message led to an explosion of low-fat processed foods that replaced fat with sugar and refined carbohydrates. Nutritionally, this was a disaster, as these processed carbs behave more like sugar in the body, spiking insulin and promoting fat storage. Third, the pyramid failed to address food quality, processing methods, or the importance of nutrient density. A serving of vegetables could be French fries, and a serving of fruit could be highly sweetened fruit juice. Finally, the pyramid made no allowance for individual differences. It prescribed a one-size-fits-all approach, despite growing evidence that genetic factors, activity levels, existing health conditions, and even gut microbiome composition significantly affect how individuals respond to different dietary patterns. Health consequences of following the pyramid. So what happened when Americans dutifully followed this advice? In the decades following the introduction of the food pyramid, America experienced a dramatic rise in obesity rates skyrocketing, type 2 diabetes diagnoses, continued high rates of heart disease, increases in inflammatory conditions, rising rates of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. What we observed is exactly what you'd expect when a population increases its consumption of refined carbohydrates and processed foods while reducing beneficial fats and protein. The food pyramid essentially recommended a diet that promotes insulin resistance, which is the common denominator behind many of our modern chronic diseases. By 2011, the USDA quietly replaced the pyramid with MyPlate, tacitly acknowledging the pyramid's failure. Yet many of the same problematic recommendations persisted, and the damage was already done. Generations had been taught a flawed understanding of nutrition that continues to influence eating habits today. Alternative eating frameworks. So if the food pyramid got it so wrong, what approaches to eating are actually supported by science? While there's no perfect diet for everyone, research consistently shows benefits from focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, consuming adequate protein for muscle maintenance, including a variety of colorful vegetables and fruits, not fearing natural fats, especially from quality sources, limiting refined carbohydrates and added sugars, paying attention to your individual response to foods. The Mediterranean dietary pattern is perhaps the most extensively studied, showing benefits for heart health, cognitive function, and longevity. But the key seems to be emphasizing whole foods and minimizing ultra-processed products, regardless of the specific framework you follow. What's fascinating is that traditional dietary patterns from around the world, despite their surface differences, share common elements that the food pyramid failed to capture. They all emphasize food quality, natural whole ingredients, and balanced macronutrients without the excessive refined carbohydrates that form the pyramid's base. Conclusion and next steps. The food pyramid represents one of the largest public health experiments ever conducted, and the results have been devastating. While its creators may have had good intentions, the combination of weak science, industry influence, and oversimplification created dietary guidance that likely contributed to, rather than prevented, our current health crises. The good news is that it's never too late to change how you eat. By understanding the flaws in conventional dietary advice, you can make more informed choices about what works for your body. In our upcoming videos, we'll dive deeper into specific food categories, explore the science behind different dietary approaches, and interview experts at the forefront of nutritional research. We even have an exclusive interview coming up with the author of a groundbreaking new book on nutrition, but that's still under wraps, so you'll need to stay tuned. If you found this information valuable, please hit the like button and share this video with anyone who might benefit from understanding the truth about dietary guidelines. Subscribe to Better Body Doctors if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming investigations. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments below. Do you have concerns about the food pyramid? What eating habits have you found that actually work for your body? We'll be adding more healthy eating videos to this playlist in the future, so let's get the conversation started. Remember, knowledge is the first step to better health, and questioning conventional wisdom is often where true understanding begins. Until next time, this is Better Body Doctors, helping you make informed decisions about your health. Better body, better life.